Today I'm reacting to Frieren episode 7. You can see the next 3 episodes on Patreon. Oh, we're starting with flashback. I love how attentive she is. I'm curious as to how Frieren is able to tell whether or not one is fake or real. Well, I suppose the spells themselves would be an indication. Just the insight that someone like Frieren is able to have into this world is just so fascinating. It's a miracle. Something came to mind, which I won't say, but I think we're all thinking. So now that they've made it through the checkpoint, I actually don't really have any guesses as to where the story's gonna go. I love this part of the ED, or the OP, I should say. Forever, ever, ever, as we march on. Alright, what story are we going? More myth than history. Okay. Okay, so still 28 years later. Can Frieren, like, enchant his shovel or something like that? Just make it a bit more balanced? Yeah. It's true. That's an interesting translation. Those things look so cool all the times I've seen them in movies. I didn't even notice she'd been calling him sir. That's good. It's interesting to think of how much of Fern's personality has been as a result of being raised by Frieren. This show would be perfect to adapt into an RPG because there's so many side quests and like mini games. Yeah, further evidence that she's a stand-in for an autistic archetype. Being the last of a particular race is such a fascinating concept to occur within fantasy settings. This is what I was talking about before. The effect that someone like Frieren has had on this world is like really incredible to see. And again, how Frieren's sense of time would result in her thinking festivals are a bit silly. I love every time we see a flashback of Himmel. He's such a great character. Every single line he says is just full of wisdom for the future. Hence why we get the title More Myth Than History. That's so fascinating because Frieren herself has existential angst about the future. Of course, for her, it's just a future that's way beyond the comprehension of humans. If anything, this show reminds me a little bit of, like, following the story of an alien who's crash-landed on Earth. What has happened? Oh! Interesting. Who are these people? A good demon, if they exist in this world? I'm curious to see what the link is between Japan and Germany, because that happens a lot in anime. Interesting. Species discrimination.
お前たち魔族は人の声真似をするだけの言葉の通じない猛獣だ。
屋敷の地下牢に入れておけ。
It's completely fascinating. Especially because at this point we're so new to the story that we don't know whether we should or shouldn't be treating Frieren with disdain.
暇だな。
2、3年は反省しろってさ。
思ってたより短いな。後で魔導書の差し入れ持ってきて。
フリーレン様は本当に時間を無駄にするのが好きですね。
で、魔族が和睦の使者ってどういうことなの？
担当大のアウラは知っていますよね。
Aura the guillotine.
魔王直下の大魔族。
アウラは28年も前に力を取り戻しています。
As Himmel died, so what happened?
その無益な殺し合いに疲弊したアウラ側が和睦の申し出をしてきたそうです。
悪手だね。魔族との対話なんて無駄な行為だ。
無駄ってことはねえだろう。言葉があるんだ。
We're getting a lot of exposition in this episode about the greater world within which our protagonists reside in.
そいつらが人類と同じ言葉を使う理由を考えたことはある？
勇者様、早くとどめを。
まだ子供だ。
それがどうしたというの？そいつは私たちの娘を食い殺したのよ。
Frieren is obviously going to have the experience here, but it's still going to be at odds with the value system of the nearby villagers.
お母さん。
これでは魔族と同じだな。償う機会を与えてやってもいいじゃないか。
And of course, this brings with it so much complication. It gets so complicated because it gets into this existential philosophy of, do we treat these as humans?
今殺しておかないと後悔するよ。だってあいつ。
フリーレン、僕たちには言葉がある。
Both Himmel and Stark saying we have words. I love the mirroring of the past and the present. This very much gives me Chainsaw Man vibes.
やっぱりあの時殺しておくべきだったんだわ。
私は平穏に過ごしたい。ですから用意しました。私が食べてしまったあなたの娘の代わりを。
Whoa.
その子は村長の娘だ。
What an incredibly twisted sense of morality.
何かこの子は人質に。
That was very cool.
お母さん。魔族は魔物と同じで子育ての習慣がなく、産み落とされてから多くの時間を
Oh, that's really interesting.
なんでお母さんなんて言葉を使うの？殺せなくなるでしょ。まるで魔法のような素敵な言葉。奴らにとっての言葉は人類を欺く術だ。その祖先は獲物をおびき寄せるために物陰から助けてと言葉を発した魔物だよ。
I'm looking forward to see how this is going to contrast, how demons are going to contrast with the likes of Frieren herself.
グラナト伯爵。
それより気になるのはあの魔法使いだ。言葉の通じない猛獣か。この町で彼女だけが我ら魔族の本質を理解している。
Like, given the fact that she lives by solitude as do demons, and the comparison that lies there.
ここは
But how important are demons to this world? I'm so curious to find this out.
10年前にアウラとの戦いで死んだ。
I like how 10 years as a time frame keeps reoccurring.
お前たちを招き入れたのは息子の無念を晴らすためだ。和睦なんてクソくらい。
Well, you should have brought Frieren with you. It would have been a lot easier.
私もあなた方に殺された父上の部屋はそのままにしてあります。
That, okay, so that's the answer to my question. That's the significance here.
もうやめにしませんか、グラナト卿。私たちには言葉があります。どうか話し合いの機会を。
The idea of words being something you have.
客室に案内してやれ。
リグナー様、父上って何？
なんだろうね。我々に恨みがあるようだが。
I was thinking Earl would understand what Lugner was going to be talking about from the very beginning.
あとはアウラ様の軍勢がこの町を滅ぼしてくださる。ドラートの姿が見えないようだが。
邪魔者を消しに行くってさ。
I assume that he's going to be coming towards Frieren and then the episode is going to end. Oh.
誰？面会時間ではないはずだけど。
お前を殺しに来た。
そう。外交ごっこ。
Yeah, so Frieren's instincts were correct.
これからさ、リグナー様の見立てによれば、この少女が我らの唯一の障害。
言っておくけど私強いよ。
Is the episode about to end now?
断頭台のアウラよりも。
Yeah, that's it. Brilliant episode. Really, really brilliant. Okay, so we got an enormous amount in this episode. I think that was an appropriate cliffhanger to end on. The show is pretty good at doing cliffhangers so far, from what I've seen. So, yeah, I mean, Frieren's instincts were correct. I mean, I was maybe, as I said in the episode, I was like, because we're only several episodes in, we don't know quite how much Frieren's mentality towards people of a demon race may have been affected by different things that she's gone through. And of course, the flashbacks do show that her past experience has very much given her a particular perspective on demons and their trustworthiness or lack thereof. I think what's interesting is that we did get a good bait and switch in that scene was very much played as though Luger was going to be somebody trustworthy, and there's going to be nuance to this, that throughout the war it was also their race that was affected as well as the human race. But then of course we got the reveal once they left the room that they are just using words to deceive. And within the reaction itself, I didn't get to elaborate it because the episode was just about to end, but we got that idea of words are something that a demon possess, whereas to humans, language is such a deep cognitive, also, well, almost like this physiological aspect of our very species. Like a language in a lot of ways makes humans who they are relative to any other animal species that there is. And then for demons, it's just a tool. It's something similar to the horns on their head. It's just something that they have. It's just something that that is to be used, and it has nothing to do with them as a species itself, which I don't know, kind of almost reminds me, in today's day and age, it reminds me a little bit of like ChatGPT or something like this, that words is just something being used by the software, that it doesn't in any way whatsoever reflect who they are. The demons are pure evil in the true sense of, it's not even about being sadistic or cruel or pathological. They are just evil to the core of words, and language and communication is just something that they utilize and nothing more than that. So with that idea in mind, it's then interesting to see how they would contrast to someone like Frieren, who is deeply empathetic and compassionate and ethical, and yet to her, she also sees the futility of language, or at the very least she can see how language is just a means to an end. I think it's interesting as the episodes go on, in hindsight, we see kind of how, well, more than soft-spoken, how truly understated someone like Frieren is, because to her, for someone who has lived as long as her, it's more than just being stoic. She has this deeply ingrained sense of what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, and what's worth spending time on and what's not worth spending time on. And you get to this end result where she is essentially living in this entirely other world than everyone else's, which makes her quite similar to the demons. But the biggest thing that makes her similar to the demons, as I alluded to within the episode itself, is the idea of solitude, in that how much of how much of fighting against the demons is going to make Frieren reflect on herself and reflect on her own sense of solitude and her own detachment from humanity, in the sense of this is a person who does not need or actively seek out human attachment as a means to an end of survival. Instead, it is just, well, a means to an end. Why she would have a relationship with humans to begin with. Earlier on in the episode, I also said that it's going to be something that is quite philosophically dense. Were we to go down the route of, to what degree do you treat a demon like a human? Like, when something is human-esque, to what degree do you try to give it the same rights and try to apply the same sense of ethics to something that has a lot of human qualities, but isn't necessarily anything more than the sum of its parts? And whilst it was interesting to see, at least in this episode, by the end of it, that Luger appears to say that what they're doing is just a means to an end for Aura to eventually raise the city, I am curious as the series goes on whether or not we're going to see more elaboration on demons as a species and what's going to happen there. Overall, again, just perfect episode with regards to pacing. There's so much intrigue that happens and there's so much setup, and they're being I think it's a very clever idea to have the internal plot of each episode move very, very quickly, but then the overarching story to be moving at a snail's pace. I think that dichotomy works really, really well. I'm not going to do too much else for this review. I'm going to keep it kind of nice and snappy. I'm trying to make the review sections a little bit more concise for now, because I'm sure as the series goes on, I'm going to have way more to say. So I will leave it there for the time being. I want to thank you so much for watching to the end, if you have. Whether you're watching for free on YouTube or you're one of my patrons, either way, thank you so much for your support. This is my favorite thing to do, and I hope to be able to do it for a very long time, as long as I can. So I think I'm going to leave it at that for today. So, arigatou gozaimasu. Thanks for watching.